Let's see what's out there.
Hello and welcome to Home Media Minefield presents Let's See What's Out There, a weekly video stream and podcast currently focused on Star Trek Picard Season 2, which is available to watch on Paramount Plus or Amazon Prime. My name's Keith Isles, and as ever, I'm joined by
Pete Mealy.
And we are both film and television enthusiasts and Star Trek fans. And in today's episode, we're going to have a spoiler-filled conversation around episode 5 of season 2, titled Fly Me to the Moon. So once again, an appropriate space-themed song-connected title, which is always a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So how you been, Pete, since the last one?
Doing well.
Yeah.
I is now when, or should we save it for another time, when I say that I've sort of changed my views on the time travel aspects that we talked about last time.
We can definitely get into that. Absolutely. Before we do, though, I don't know how I've had a bit of feedback from friends really that have watched this. I don't know what sort of audience we've got, but friends that have watched this that say they quite like the little news bit that we do at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
But I've got some news this week, which is okay. It's not about Star Trek, but it is about Star Wars. That we the reason I say that is we do cover on this channel the Star Wars shows as well. I know, Pete, you're more of a Star Trek guy than a Star Wars guy. We've talked about that at length, but I don't know whether you knew about this and just wondered if you had any thoughts on it. I've certainly got mine. So Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is the next show that's due to come out on Disney Plus from the Star Wars universe stroke franchise, was always set to come out on May 25th, which essentially is the 45th anniversary of the original Star Wars. So in other words, the 45th anniversary of Obi-Wan Kenobi as a character, coming into existence on the big screen.
Sure.
And Ewan McGregor, who obviously is playing Obi-Wan Kenobi in this series, came with a little trailer, a little announcement just to say, hey, everyone, just to let you know that Obi-Wan Kenobi is being pushed 2 days later. So it's going to turn up on the 27th of May rather than the 25th of May. But the good news is that we're going to launch the first 2 episodes on that date. So you'll get a double bill of it, but you'll have to wait an extra 2 days. Do you have any, before I go into my rabbit on it, do you have any initial thoughts on that, Pete, from your perspective?
That just seems really weird, from an outside point of view. It feels like you don't gain anything by pushing it 2 days, especially since you're pushing it to a Friday. So then you're dealing with any sort of new movie releases that are coming out then, right? So that does feel really weird to me.
Yeah, I think it's, I have to be honest. I mean, I always say this show and this channel, I try and make it about, positivity and love for these franchises, right? Because Lord knows that there's a lot of hate out there. If it's not uncommon, the sort of discourse around franchises like Star Wars and Star Trek. But I did want to say something about this because I do think this does ring a little bit of an alarm bell for me. And I'll tell you why I think it's odd. Is first of all, I think they totally missed the trick by not having it on May the 25th, because everybody keeps saying Star Wars Day is May the 4th because of that, whole joke, May the 4th be with you and all of this stuff. But the actual date is May 25th. And that's why on May 25th last year, I did that special episode on the Star Wars radio dramas, which you know, if you're watching, you can find that on this channel. I had some very special guests join me for that one. But so I think, first of all, that, you know, they've sort of missed a trick with the date there. The other thing I think is odd about this choice is Star Wars Celebration, which is a sort of expo event that takes place in Anaheim, California, is on the
it moves every year.
Yeah, and it's on the 26th of May. So again, I find this weird that this is going to be launching bang in the middle of that, rather than, you know, people haven't been able to watch it before turning up to that event, because now you're going to get spoilers and all sorts of things in there, you know, and people are, what are people going to watch it on their laptops or something from their hotel room? It just seems, I just think it seems a very odd thing.
No, you know, actually, that makes a lot more sense to me then. If they're going to launch it, if they're going to launch it in the middle of Star Wars Celebration, I don't know what the Celebration calendar is or anything, but I guarantee you there's going to be something gigantic there with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the opening night, like the 26th, they're going to say, great, if you came to Star Wars Celebration, come to this screening hall. We're going to show you the first 2 episodes the day before everyone else. Ewan McGregor is going to be there. I'm sure that it's lined up to coincide with Star Wars Celebration.
Oh, okay. All right. I just, you might be right. I just thought it was odd, because I thought, you know, if they're doing it when in the middle of when Celebration's already started, it means that people who are at Celebration won't necessarily get to watch it until they're back, and it would have, I don't know.
I think they're doing it in Celebration to make it more of an event for the Celebration crew. I don't know if I ever said this before, but I got to go to Star Wars Celebration 5 in Florida.
Right. No, you didn't.
When I worked for a radio show, and we did a whole segment there, but I got to go for 3 days, 4 days of the thing. Yeah, got to meet Peter Mayhew. He and I stayed in the same hotel. Yeah, a bunch of other people. Yeah. So I know from experience that Star Wars Celebration is a wild time.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'd love to go to something like that, but you know, not on the cards at the moment. But you know what? I'm really glad I brought this up then, because you've put a positive spin on that, which makes me happy. My fear was that it's been delayed because they've had to make some last minute changes or something to the episode.
Yeah, nothing.
And that kind of rang a little bit of an alarm bell. I'm like, oh dear, you know, what's happening? But if you put it that way and you think it's going to be like premiering at Celebration, then
that is exactly what I think they're doing.
That does make more sense. But anyway, regardless, looking forward to it. We'll be covering it on this channel, I'm absolutely sure. I don't know whether that's something you're going to be chomping at the bit for, Pete, or not, because I know your relationship with that franchise is different. And
I will say I think I might watch this one when it comes out, just because this seems like a great storyline. I know that Clone Wars, right, did a lot of telling the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi in the middle there, in between prequels and original trilogy. So I think that the Obi-Wan Kenobi character is really interesting and great. And I think I read somewhere that Hayden Christensen is playing Anakin in this.
Yeah, that is correct. As I said, it's weird. It's so weird doing a show like we do, because on one hand, I'm trying to do everything I can to avoid any spoilers, but likewise, you know, have things to talk about on the channel, you've got to be kind of aware of stuff. And obviously on the Star Trek side of things, there has been a newer trailer for Strange New Worlds as well, which I don't know if you're avoiding that or not, but anyway.
On the Star Trek side, I did watch the Strange New Worlds trailer originally, just out of pure curiosity. Like I wanted to see what they put together. But I haven't seen the new one, and I don't know that I'll go searching it out because it feels like the first one that I saw was so generic, and that the next one might not be that generic, and I'm fine with the generic introduction.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, anyone who's watching or listening on one of the podcasts or watching us here on YouTube, we are a Star Trek channel. We are a Star Trek show, this one. So I'll get off the Star Wars news and we'll move forward with the program. But if this is your sort of thing and you like this, then please do, give the video a like. Consider subscribing to the channel, hit the bell icon, all of that stuff, because we've got all sorts of different content. And if you're listening to us, consider giving us a review or a rating or something, because it does all help. But for now, we'll crack on with our show. So it's time to engage.
We open on a 21st century space flight that isn't going well, but it was just a simulation. So the pilot, who is Rene Picard, is frustrated but alive. The other Picard discovers that the Watcher has dedicated their life to watching over Rene to make sure that her life is successful and safe. But all that surveillance hasn't helped her notice that Q is Rene's therapist, who may be pushing her to give up her spot on the Europa mission. The Borg Queen hacks into the cell phone network and calls the police to Chateau Picard, where the single officer who shows up doesn't find Jurati asleep in the chateau, but does find the cloaked ship, gets in, and meets the Borg Queen, who half assimilates the officer and half uses him as bait to get Jurati to assimilate with her. But instead, Jurati shoots the Borg Queen in the head with a shotgun she found in the chateau. Meanwhile, Seven and Raffi break Rios out of the bus, setting everyone free, including one person who Raffi briefly mistakes for Elnor. We also meet with this century's Dr. Soong and his sick daughter, who looks exactly like Daj. Soong is trying to crack the genetic manipulation needed to save her from dying when exposed to air and sunlight. Q meets up with Dr. Soong and provides an antidote, but just as Daj is enjoying a swim, the mystery drug wears off and her blood is turning to poison and she can't breathe. So Soong then becomes Q's hostage, and Q needs Soong's help with the Picard situation. Rios, Seven, and Raffi beam back up and help Jurati patch up the police officer, wipe his memory, and then take him back to his car, just as the Watcher and Picard show up. The team decides to get closer to Rene, which means hacking into a max security gala. Yeah. So then we start a Mission Impossible movie, but we only have time to get to the part where Jurati gets captured on purpose to hack the network gala, and then we see that part of the Borg Queen has remained in Jurati's mind. Dun, dun, dun!
Indeed. Quite a lot to unpack there, wasn't there?
There
you
was.
Did, as always, you did a fantastic job of it.
Thank you.
And we will indeed dig into it. But before we do, we're going to have a look at some of this week's credits in our Make It So. Previous work includes television series such as Desperate Housewives, The Odd Couple, Young and Hungry, Heartbeat, Superior Donuts, and MacGyver before getting involved in Star Trek Picard. There are other credits to her name as well as additional crew, story editors on the TV series, writer's assistant on the TV series Over the Top, and the King of Queens. So quite a lot of credits here, but that's good. And of course, this episode is this time directed by Jonathan Frakes, who we have talked about so much that we don't need to really, I think, go into all of that. We always prefer to talk about the more sort of lesser known and unsung heroes, if you like. And we applied the same to the cast as well, because we look at our guest cast as opposed to our regulars on this show. So the most notable one in this particular episode is Penelope Mitchell, who plays Renee Picard. Penelope, she's an Australian actress. She's best known for playing the role of Letha Godfrey on the American horror television series Hemlock Grove, and Liv Parker on the Vampire Diaries, both of which I haven't actually watched those, so I'm not that familiar with her work, although I do think she's done a great job in this particular episode. And it turns out that she was the character that Q was watching at the end of the last episode, reading that Dixon Hill book. So there you go. More mysteries uncovered. So yeah,
that was great.
That was the basic overview credits on tonight's or this episode. Sorry, not tonight's, but the latest episode.
Yeah.
But Pete, as always, before we get into our thoughts, it's time to have a beverage and order some tea, Earl Grey, hot.
Do you have your drinking too? Yeah,
I do. Yes, I have. Well, at this time of night, decaffeinated black coffee, but
yeah, mine is coffee room temperature. Okay,
there we go. So this is where we talk. For if you're new to the show, this is just a little bit of fun, really. It's where we talk about some of the Easter eggs, references to other Star Trek properties, or indeed other film and television properties. I will caveat by saying here at the beginning, this is not going to be a comprehensive list. We are sure to have missed things, and we really do encourage. We want people to write in if we've missed something obvious. So please either put it down in the comments below or contact the show through our Gmail account. But either way, we encourage watcher and listener feedback. Absolutely. And as I said, this is really just a bit of fun. We know these shows are absolutely packed with references. I mean, right from the title, as we've already said, it's Fly Me to the Moon. You've got obviously the references there to space flight and all that, but also, as Star Trek likes to do, it's referencing musical numbers and things as well. So but yeah, Pete, any that sprang
sorry, 1 second. Real life has broken in. My daughter is locked out of the house and I need to open the door for her.
Okay, no problem.
Start. I can still hear you, but
okay.
Go.
Well, I'll rattle through some there. There you go. This is when we record these things. Life happens. So yes. All right. The first one that I got here was well, actually, there's quite a lot of things. Oh, you're back. In fact,
I'm so sorry. Yeah,
that's all right. Go. Because I didn't get into it. I was too busy waffling.
I heard you. Okay. So the big one is I was super impressed actually with you because you picked up that the Watcher might have a connection to TOS, and then it did. And,
but it was the wrong one.
But still, I was super impressed. I was super impressed because I did go back and I watched Assignment Earth, which was the TOS series show that had Gary 7 in it. Oh yeah, there you look at you. You got the photo.
There you go. Yes.
That's Gary 7 with the cat. It is the episode where the meme with Spock holding the cat comes from. And when Gary 7 transports on Earth, and I'm choosing my words carefully there, those are the smoke in the square rectangle visual effect is consistent from TOS to Picard.
Right, okay.
So it like literally it's the exact same effect. Obviously,
Right.
you know, a little bit cleaner, but the exact same effect. So I really like that one. I
Yeah,
did.
and I mean, it's important to say as well with this that it was I think a second season episode.
It was the
With guest
season
starred,
finale.
guest starred Robert Lansing as Gary Seven, and it was actually intended, I believe, by Gene Roddenberry to be a backdoor pilot for
Yeah,
another series, but
yeah.
which didn't transpire. But yes, so there was a connection, but obviously, I had the wrong one last week, but still, it did connect to the original series. So yeah,
I'm
and
still. I think it was just whirling away in the back of your mind there.
And
And
interestingly, in that series, they go back to contemporary Earth of the time, So it was that they
yeah,
were in the late '60s, and it was well, it's good that it connects. Absolutely.
yeah. And it actually, that episode bears a lot of similarities
Yes.
to Picard, I think, because they're in the past. They were supposed to be monitoring the past for research purposes. Uh,
Yep.
and then Kirk and Spock aren't sure what to let happen. Like they're not sure what's the divergence in the timeline and
Hmm.
what's the actual timeline. And so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yes.
Um,
It still doesn't, which I'm sure we'll dig into, but it still doesn't explain why the character looks like Laris. But
no, it doesn't. But I think that they're building something there because we had the Elnor um, not even look alike. Like it was a camera trick, right? They did a thing where Elnor ran past, but then when she grabbed the guy, it was not Elnor, it was somebody else, a different
yeah,
actor.
yeah,
So I think there's going to be something there.
yep.
Because also we get Daj Soji, there, the black blob next to Brent Spiner's head is Issa Briones, right?
That's
Um,
right. Yep. This time
and
playing Core soon.
yeah.
So yes.
Um, and so I think there's going to be sort of a theme about uh, repeating styles, or repeating motifs coming up. At least that's what I would do. Okay. What else did I see? I mean, not much. We get the Borg Queen doing voices, which was sort of reminiscent to any time that Data had to hack the Enterprise on TNG. And you really would think that they would have figured out a way to get around that. Um, you uh, you get, I don't know if this is a nitpick or a reference, but they pick that shotgun off the wall of a 200-year-old house and it's magically loaded and still works. Which I all I could think about was Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, that Guy Ritchie film. But
Yeah.
that's what I saw. What did you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much nailed most of it there. I mean, I've got a little for those of you watching on YouTube, I've got a little picture there on the right of Leah Thompson actually makes a little cameo in this. So she
That's who
directed,
that was.
yeah, she directed the last two episodes, and in this one, she makes a little cameo there, which I thought was quite nice. So yeah, one could say that's an Easter egg, I guess. There's a lot of things to talk about, some of which I suppose are also Easter eggs. I mean, one of the things I did like was Q had the line, Dr. Soong, I presume, which kind of made me think of Deep Space Nine, Dr. Bashir, I presume,
Oh
and
yeah.
the sort of connections there. But they do loads of things like that. So I'm not sure that's really, necessarily an intentional Easter egg. But a few things. And then, of course, obviously we get, as you'd predicted, you were predicting that Brent Spiner was going to show up at some point in this. I know there were some things about would he be the Watcher, but it turns out that he's what I find quite interesting is as he gets older, he plays earlier people in the Soong family line, because obviously we've had him in Enterprise, what was that was 15 years ago or more probably now, and then here he turns up as Adam Soong. I do kind of like, I mean, it's a bit of a laugh that the Soong family resemblance really does stretch that way through centuries, but it's a great way to get Brent in it, and it's always good when he's in it. So I did kind of I kind of like that. But yeah, I mean, the whole Rene Picard thing, I think that's less of an Easter egg and more of something to discuss. But along with many of the other things. So yeah, I'm sure there are other references in there. As I said, if anybody, if we've missed some obvious ones, which is quite possible with me and Pete, please put it in the comments or contact us, and we'll bring it up on the next show and give you kudos. But we do try and avoid these things until we've done our show, so that we're not influenced, as I said. So should we move on to the next bit then, Pete?
Let's.
And this is what we call There Are Four Lights. It's our predictions of where, or speculations on where we think things might go. Do you want to go first, Pete?
Sure. So I think that what I think the key factor is, right? The key thing that is going to be the timeline changer is going to have to deal with the Picard, Rene Picard, not being on the Europa flight, and instead of looking to the stars, right? Because the Picard has that line about how Rene found a microbe on the Europa mission. Mm-hmm. And that instead Rene Picard is going to look at instead of to the stars, to home, to then hook up with Soong and start genetic modifications and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of this look of, instead of going out into the world and trying to better everything, staying inside and trying to better yourself, right, or make yourself more perfect.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm missing how to say that really well, but it's like, instead of improving yourself by diversifying, focus on refining what you are already. And so maybe that's
I mean what is interesting is Picard does say in the film Nemesis, when he's talking to the younger clone of himself, he says about how he was the first Picard to venture outside of the galaxy, which even if Rene does do this space flight, that still makes that line correct, because it's going to be within our sorry, not galaxy. Why am I saying galaxy? The whole thing is in our galaxy. Sorry, solar system is what I meant to say. Sorry, within had left our solar system. But of course, even if Rene does this flight, it's still within our solar system. So so it doesn't ruin any continuity as far as that is concerned. He also, in Generations, when he talks about his family. He said that and some of his descendants and ancestors and whatever. He said that he had been one of the few that had gone into exploring the galaxy, right? And all this. So what I'm saying, basically, I'm blundering a bit what I'm trying to say here, but what I'm saying is it doesn't contradict anything. If anything, it supports it, right? So
yeah. I also think that we're going to find out that Cora, right? Is that the name, Cora soon?
Yes.
Is a genetically modified clone or whatever. Not what's the line from the Scottish play of woman born?
Yes.
Yeah. So they had a couple of awkward references to Soji's mother, or the Cora's mother, and all I could think was, oh, okay, so they're trying to hint that it's not natural, right? There's going to be something else there to that storyline.
Yes.
Yeah. And then my final prediction is that Jurati is then going to take the place of the Borg Queen to do the calculations to get them home.
Right.
Because they kind of ham-fistedly put that in there.
Yeah. No, that kind of links to a couple of things. So first of all, just to sort of reinforce some of the ones you've said there, one of the things that, again, I kind of like, because it references or it kind of makes what's already come make even more sense. So Soji and Daj in the first season, okay, was in a painting that Data painted for Picard, that Picard found, and that's what unraveled the mystery when she came to him. I kind of like the fact that who he paints, that character resembles somebody from back in the past that's connected with his family,
who is a daughter.
Exactly, which Soong liked to do in all of his, I mean, to the point of making Data in his image and whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of helps reinforce things, if you like. It's that sort of retroactive writing that sort of it almost like improves what's been there before in some respects. So I kind of like that, and again, a great way to include Issa Baronis in this show without having her just relegated to a guest spot in the first episode, bearing in mind she was essentially kind of the lead character, or the character that she followed in season 1. So so that was good. But yes, so we'll deal with the Jurati thing first, because you mentioned her. So yes, likewise, I'm like, okay, is Jurati going to be, taken over by the Borg Queen? And therefore, in episode 1 of this show, when we saw the Borg Queen, it didn't resemble anything that we'd seen before. It had that again, I've got an image up for those who are watching this, but basically the Borg Queen in episode 1 looked very different to what we'd seen, and her face was obscured. So I'm just wondering if that was actually the Jurati Borg Queen coming back to tell Picard that he needed to do this, and that's where the message and everything comes from. So that would all tie up, right? If that was the case.
Yeah, actually, that is a great prediction, because something that I have not liked is how Q is really sort of changed his playing rules and seems to be taking an active hand in what's going on. Which we haven't seen in the past with Q. But if what you're saying is that actually that is Jurati as the Borg Queen, then maybe she's the one who snapped them into the alternate timeline, and then Q just shows up at that moment. That would be an interesting.
Yeah, because obviously that message was that subspace, and that spatial anomaly and all of this was specifically for Picard. And as I said, we've made this assumption because it's what we're used to seeing, that it's Q that does this. But likewise, we've also seen that Q doesn't really have his powers now the way he used to. Yes, he can update his appearance to look older for the convenience of filmmaking, but and he can do these things, but he can't do everything. And at the end of last week's episode, he was somewhat perplexed because he just wanted to snap his fingers and sort the Rene Picard situation out, and it didn't work. So he had to end up like sort of posing as her counselor and doing like a terrible kind of
French accent, or
sort of Freud impression or something. But again, he's done before, right? But we know he likes to do things like that, so it's not against the character in any way. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would be nice to think if things sort of tie up that nicely, but I don't know. It just made me think, is this what's going on with Agnes, and could that have been her in that first episode, which is why we didn't see Susanna Thompson. Not Susanna Thompson, sorry, it's not her now. And Annie
and
Walching, isn't it?
Walching,
playing the Borg Queen in that first episode. We didn't see her, and it just makes me wonder about that possibly. The other thing, and this is probably where you'll laugh a little bit at me, Pete, but I'm going to say it. So I've got a bit of a weird obsession with continuity and and all of this sort of thing. Well, I think that they've done something quite clever that could fix something that's always bothered. Well, not just me, but it's bothered a lot of Star Trek fans over the years, and it kind of. Even though this is retroactively done, it kind of makes sense in many respects. So one of the things when you go back to the obviously 60s series and Space Seed and the whole thing about Khan is, they say that that took place in the 1990s, yet in the Voyager episode, past tense, was it past tense?
No idea.
Anyway, in the Voyager episode, God, I'm so bad at remembering. No, past tense is the Deep Space Nine episode that I'm always referencing. But in the Voyager episode where they go back to present day, they go back to the 90s, and obviously the eugenics wars not happening, and there's always been
relativity.
No. Oh God, I had it the other week, and I've totally
time and again.
No, it's a two-part one where they go back to
Future's End, parts 1 and 2.
Yes, that's the one. Future's End. Thank you. We got there. There'll be people screaming at their podcatcher or whatever at the moment. But yeah, sorry. But in that, as you can see, I haven't really prepared for this today. But in that, they go back to the 90s, and there's no eugenics wars, and it's always been kind of a thing. But Spock in Space Seed does actually say records of that time are are patchy or whatever, or incomplete. And Picard kind of reinforces that in this one when he's saying that the century leading up to first contact, which we know is 2063, right? So 30 years from this episode, was patchy and whatever because of World War III and the fact that things had got destroyed and lost, right? But when you think about it, our information in the real world now, largely paper records are kind of disappearing, and everything is virtual and cloud-based, and kept on servers and stuff. So if there was an EMP, if there was a World War III, let's hope there isn't going to be, but if there was, right, those sort of records would get lost, right? So this whole sort of continuity thing about when the eugenics wars happened and when Khan was, in power, and you know, all the things relating to Space Seed and Wrath of Khan and all of these things that didn't quite make sense. Even the Deep Space Nine episodes where Julian Bashir is discovered to have been a genetic augment and whatever, that kind of retroactively now makes more sense, right? Because of a line of dialogue in this episode. So
actually, are you talking about the Picard line? Because I'm just thinking of another line that might really tie stuff together.
okay,
Which is that the Leia Thompson character says you were doing experiments on soldiers.
yes,
And so that might be a Easter egg, continuity reference to Noonie and Soong.
yes.
Khan Noonie, right?
Yes, and also the other exactly that, and then of course the other thing that makes total sense with all of this now is we've met Adam Sung here, who's you know, for reasons of trying to save his daughter or whatever, is experimenting with this sort of thing, right? But also, in the Enterprise episode, his character in that was responsible for the augments in that show, right?
Yeah.
Which again was connected with they mentioned Botany Bay,
Yeah.
having disappeared centuries earlier and all of this sort of thing. So I mean, in a way, I'm not being very eloquent the way I'm explaining it here, but what I'm trying to say is all of these things kind of tie up, and it sort of makes more sense of
Things
those continuity errors that have happened simply because of fiction and the real world not necessarily going in the same direction, thankfully. So yeah, so in terms of a prediction, what I'm saying is we're going to find that Adam Sung here is indeed connected with the eugenics program and what ends up becoming the eugenics wars. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Cool. All right. So let's get into what we really think then. Yeah. So
Yes.
it's time to draw a line. So the line is drawn here. So yes. Come on then, Pete. This is where we go over our real thoughts, nitpicks, concerns, thoughts on the episode. Yeah.
I have a lot of nitpicks.
Yay!
With this episode. I think I mentioned some of them in the recap. Like, it is ridiculous that Girardi leaves the spaceship because it's too cold to go to sleep in an empty house that then the police officer does not find her in, right? Like, it's 100-year-old house that no one's been in, and you can't find one person breaking in the last 10 hours. Like, I find that exceedingly hard to believe. 2, I find it exceedingly hard to believe that the shotgun is loaded and works. I find it exceedingly hard to believe that you would use the shotgun instead of a phaser, right? And I find it ridiculous that one police officer shows up. Yeah. So there's a lot of garbage in this. I do find it also ridiculous that the only way to get closer to Rene Picard is to hack a gala where they are reading the biosignatures of everyone at all times. Like, that is ridiculous. And so it does sort of go towards that manufactured drama that I was talking about, previously. And oh yeah. And like that the that Cora Soong can't be exposed to sunlight or air, but then they give her the medicine outside under the protection of some drones is ridiculous. the whole thing is just kind of nuts, and feels very sort of just like ham-fisted. Now, having torn, I feel like, several holes in the writing of this show, I will say that I watched Assignment Earth after seeing this episode.
You're much better at this than me. Yes.
I just have, I think, a greater ability to procrastinate my actual duties to watch Star Trek, Keith. I think that's what it is. And I had a real revelation watching that episode, because as I was watching that episode, all I could think was, this is ridiculous, right? Like, this episode, Assignment Earth, is a ridiculous Star Trek episode. It is one of those episodes where like people would be like, what is this show? And based on Assignment Earth, it's hard to, I think, see that this show, Star Trek, became what it is. And then as I had that thought, I was like, oh crap, that's very much how I feel about Picard. Like, it's just ridiculous, and it's manufactured drama, and it isn't speaking to my heart the way that so much other Star Trek has spoken to my heart. And so I say that because I think I have turned sort of a corner in how I think about Picard, which is that, like, I don't hate it like I was starting to hate it. I just think that this is a different Star Trek, and it's not even new. It's not something new that Star Trek's doing. This is just like some of the old TOS episodes that were ridiculous and were written for a very specific point. And it's not a point that or no, that's not true. It is a point that resonates with me on some level, but it's being done sort of ham-fistedly, or they're telegraphing their actions, and so it's just not being done particularly well. But now I'm like, okay, but that is sort of Star Trek's bag. Some Star Trek's bag, right? So like, Star Trek, when it's really, really good, is transcendent, and Star Trek, when it is just sort of run of the mill, is not. And so I think this is just sort of run of the mill Star Trek. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's cool and fair, I think, in many respects. One of the things I wanted to do, because I know you were, obviously we don't talk before we do these episodes, but I know one of the things that you did want to address, before we dig more into this episode, is going back to last week. And I have to say, what I did was you had done your homework and you'd watched the Times Arrow episode. And I said that I hadn't actually revisited that because I didn't really care for it particularly when I saw it back in the day. And I did rewatch it. I watched it after our episode last time. And I realized one of the things, again, this is you're going to laugh because this is like Keith wanting logic where there isn't any. But one of the things that drove me nuts with the part one, and obviously because that was a season cliffhanger, part two was obviously written and produced, because they never wrote, something that always surprised me when I was first studying about television and writing for television, and I always assumed that all the two-parters were written as one, like written as a movie, basically, which in some cases was true. The feature-length episodes that were sometimes shown as two-parters, like the pilot or the finale of the shows, and some like Voyager had a few sort of mid-season ones and whatever, were indeed written as parts 1 and 2, right? But at the same time, but the season cliffhangers were basically part 1 was written, and then they'd figure out in the hiatus how to basically get out of that situation for part 2. And this is why, in many respects, some of the two-parters, I've heard lots of people say, even about the Best of Both Worlds, is part 1 is excellent, but part 2 isn't quite as strong. I've heard that said about a number of Star Trek episodes. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is the thing that drove me mad in part 1 was, and it really, really bothered me, was Data goes back to, the 1890, whatever it is, and encounters Mark Twain and all these, people.
And Jack London.
And the only thing people comment on is his uniform. And I'm thinking, hold on a second, you've got a guy here that's got yellow eyes and a sort of white gold skin, right? And the only thing that you think is odd is that he looks like he's wearing some pajamas or something, right? And it just drove me, because I thought the logic within the show just doesn't make sense there. But in the second part, somebody does refer to him as that albino guy.
Yeah.
Right? And I think, it's almost like in part 2, they were like, when they were writing it, it's like, oh, we've heard people say that this is rubbish and doesn't make sense. We've got to have something to explain it. And the sort of albino thing kind of works. It still doesn't really explain why he's got yellow eyes, but
brown hair.
And all this sort of thing. Well, exactly. Yes, indeed. But things like that really, really bugged me. And that just annoyed me at the time. I was like, seriously, he's bumping into people in the 1800s. And the only thing they've got to say is that's a really weird uniform. That's a really weird outfit that you're wearing. And I was like, and that drove me mad. But the reason I'm going off on this, we've gone off on a complete tangent, I know, but I know you wanted to address the Guinan thing that we talked about last week, and why she doesn't look like Whoopi Goldberg for starters.
Oh no, not that part.
But also why she doesn't recognize Picard when he goes in the bar last week. So sorry, I've tried to set that up for you in a really long-winded way.
No, it's perfect. So the part of this that I had someone explain this to me, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. Is the time travel aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is wibbly wobbly, timey wimey here, right? But if the thing you have to remember is that when Picard lands after whatever happens with the Borg Queen, it is a future, right? So a 2500s that differs from TNG.
Mm-hmm.
And the only people who are aware of the TNG timeline are like the 5 or 6 people, 7 people that we follow, right? Picard, 7 of 9, Raffi, Elnor, Rios, right?
Yeah.
Which means that that's still the dominant timeline.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which means that the Next Generation episodes didn't happen.
Yeah.
Which means that there would be no Data.
Yeah.
Which means that there would never have been a time zero.
Yeah.
And so then when Picard goes back to 2024, Guinan would never have met him in the 1700s because 2450 Picard never went back to San Francisco in the 1800s.
Yes.
And so
yeah,
somebody said that to me and I was like, oh, right.
Okay,
yeah. And I think that's what you were trying to say. And I tried to correct you saying, no. The timelines diverge at 2024, not in the 1700s. But yes, the timelines diverge in 2024, which means that the occurrences in 2450 that shot back to 1700s never happened.
That makes sense. That does make sense. I like the fact we're trying to make sense of fictional time travel, but I'm gonna throw a curveball. It's gonna because I've been thinking about this as well, right? And that's right. That makes sense. And you're right, because obviously the 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 future didn't happen from that point in the way, but
Yeah.
in yesterday's Enterprise, which I love, I absolutely love yesterday's Enterprise, right? But obviously the past changes the present in yesterday's Enterprise, right? And they're in another timeline, yeah. And the only one that knows things are wrong is Guinan, right? And when they try and explain that in the episode, Data says perhaps a species has a perception that goes beyond linear time, right? And Picard goes, yes, there's a lot about our species we don't know, right? But if she has a perception that goes beyond linear time, would that not be the case in this as well?
Here's what I'll say to you is that that perception as displayed in yesterday's Enterprise,
yeah,
my reading would be that would have been happening to her in the 1700s or 1800s, not in 2024, right? And so like back when she was having dinner with Mark Twain, she would have been like, something's wrong, someone's missing. And then 200 years pass and Picard shows up, and by that time she's forgotten it. Because I agree with you, right? Like Guinan doesn't know what's wrong in yesterday's Enterprise, but she knows it feels wrong.
yeah.
And so I think that they should release a bonus scene of just this Guinan in the costume on that set having tea and looking at some Mark Twain actor going, somebody's missing.
Yeah, and it's not Tasha Yar. Yeah.
And it's not Tasha Yar, right? But yeah, because like that's what she was doing. She looked at Tasha Yar and was like, you don't belong here, right?
Yes.
And she looked at the Enterprise and said, where are the families?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where are the kids? And so yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That would have happened. It's just it would have happened in the 1800s.
Yeah.
When she was in San Francisco, and she would have been going, there's supposed to be someone else here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to this episode then. So the Rene Picard flight then is literally the thing that can spend the difference between the Star Trek that we all know or this totalitarian dark world that Q shows, and it's all based on that one space flight, and you know, connected to Picard quite literally. Yeah
so, and I think they gave us the clue in this episode as to what that was. Right, did you? So when they said like, oh, she found a microbe that she thought was sentient, right? And I think that's exactly what it is. The acceptance of other life that could be equal to humanity is what Rene Picard is going to bring. And then
30 years before the Vulcans decide to take notice.
Exactly.
Well, 30, or should I say 30 years before the first warp flight that makes the Vulcans take notice. Yes, as seen in first. So, in fact, I felt this was very connected to First Contact, this episode. Which wasn't a bad thing. So, but yeah, so goods and bads. Then, I mean, I really did enjoy, and I'm sure Jonathan Frakes enjoyed directing it as well, and I'm sure
for sure
had a blast. But I did enjoy the scene between John Delancey as Q and Brent Spiner as Adam Sung in the diner. I actually thought that was actually quite well written, and of course nicely performed by both actors. But what did you think? I know you've got various little issues with all this, but
I hated that scene.
No, you hated
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then do tell.
That was, so the party scene at the end felt like a Mission Impossible movie, and that diner scene felt like it was out of a heist movie, and I just didn't get it. I didn't like the Q line about you're gonna sit down here in 17 seconds. Um, I I was like, no, that's like it just doesn't feel right. I don't know, it didn't land for me. The stuff with Soong talking about, like I get a lot of crackpots, and then him wanting to leave. I was like, okay, that makes sense, right? But then what happens is that Q is like, no, you're not gonna leave. Uh and so then he doesn't leave, and then Soong just goes right back to talking like a crackpot. Or sorry, Q goes right back to talking like a crackpot, crazy person. And I was like, yeah, why would no, this doesn't make any sense. Um I it didn't feel like it was the right place or time. It did. It felt like it was out of some other show. And so I was like, okay, it felt forced, which is my overall critique. They wanted to put these two together, and so they were like, well, let's jam in a, a, a heist movie thing where he takes the scientist hostage because he has the one thing that the scientist needs to save his daughter. And I guess I was expecting something more mysterious from Q, less explained, less crackpot theories, more sort of Q being an omnipotent being that wants something, and more Q playing with him, right? It didn't feel like Q was playing with Soong like a cat and mouse, like the Q that we've seen a lot of other times. It felt more like Q was playing the part of an eccentric person, and I don't know, it didn't work for me.
Okay, interesting. Do you think we're at a point where having familiar actors with the franchise play other roles that are sort of connected and whatever, do you think it's got too winky now and too fan servicey, or do you think it kind of works overall?
I honestly, I think that um, the actors are maybe a little bit out of their element, and what I think, what struck me today is you were running through the writing credits, is that it feels like a lot of the showrunners and staff here, like the writers are not coming from a strong Star Trek background, and so they're bringing something really different to it, and maybe that's what I'm not enjoying as much. And so I guess I don't hold the actors accountable, although maybe we should sort of say, like, this is Patrick Stewart, right, wanting to play in the sandbox of Star Trek, and so they're sort of doing their own thing, and it's not landing for me. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Okay. And also, obviously, we've had no explanation as to why. I'm trying to think of the character's name. The Gary Seven type.
The Watcher. Yeah.
What's her name? I've forgotten her name already. But
yeah, I don't know.
Orla Brady is the actress, but I'm just trying to think what the name of the character is, and I can't find it. But we've got no real sort of explanation as to why she resembles Laris. And again, if this was all created by Q, you could sort of kind of say, well, he's done it so that it messes with Picard more, knowing that Picard had feelings for Laris. Yeah, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't quite know what the thought is. I mean, again, it's like giving Orla Brady as an actress something to do, but I'm not sure whether it actually makes any sense. And I don't know. Am I reaching too much? Am I looking too much into this?
No, yeah. They're
Do you think
given.
there will be an explanation or not?
I think that there will be an explanation just
Right.
because they did that thing with Elnor
Yeah.
in the bus heist. That's the wrong word, but whatever. And then I think that they will also do something with Dodge Soji. Now I've forgotten her name. Issa Briones
Yeah.
playing
Core.
Core.
Yeah.
I think they'll do something with her. When whenever Picard, Jean-Luc Picard now, right? I have to have to specify. Whenever Jean-Luc Picard meets up with them, he's going to say like, "Oh, hey, yeah, um, you look just like somebody else," and so they're gonna, I think, tie that all together.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my guess.
Okay. And did you have any thoughts? I mean, obviously, again, from a continuity point of view, they were obviously saying that they couldn't beam Rios out of the bus because it would contaminate the timeline, but also, as we've established in other Star Trek, at this point you can't beam from a moving object, right? That comes because remember, Mr. Scott comes up with that. Although we are in a different universe, I suppose. So,
Yeah,
but
no, I thought they could beam from a moving object.
oh right, I thought that was something that
No,
Scotty.
they couldn't. What Scotty did was beaming onto something at warp.
Oh, it warp. Yes, you're right. Yeah, which is
Yeah,
much more than just moving. Yeah,
much
but
more than just.
anyway, but yeah, the fact she uses the EMP to disable the bus instead. I don't know. They didn't have a lot to do in this episode, did they? Seven,
No,
Raffi.
not a lot to do, but I didn't mind that bus interlude at all. I thought that was actually, that was one bit where I was like, I like this, right? Like that worked for the characters for me. Like the way that Seven was like, Rafi, I know you're angry and you just want to punch something, but let's think it through. That worked for me. The EMP disabling the bus, Rios getting everyone on the bus to work together to overthrow the guards. I was like, yeah, that works. And it was quick, so I didn't mind that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's we're at the halfway point. We're halfway
Yeah.
through this season. Yeah, interesting what you were saying about writing, because it's interesting that Cindy Appel's work prior to this was on MacGyver. And of course, we've got kind of, like you said, a bit of a Mission Impossible,
Yeah.
stakeout thing going on there towards
Yeah.
the end. Yeah.
Terry Matalis, right? Also did MacGyver.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, so it feels like they've like gathered together that group to work on this, and I mean, okay, but come on.
Terry Matalis, to his credit, is from what I've read, is a big Star Trek fan, and I think he's tried to include the sort of references to other Trek and whatever, which I think they've done quite a nice job of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Lot logic in the actual story that's being told here aside, the actual connections to other Trek, past and future, in terms of this kind of works quite nicely. But yeah, but I don't know. I'm kind of. I still look forward to this every week. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of intrigued and want to tune into it as soon as it comes out. So I'm still on board at the moment from my point of view.
Yeah, I'm. What I will say is I did. I think I was being very down on this the last 2-3 weeks, and after watching Assignment Earth, I'm feeling better about it as a series overall. Are we at the pip point of the show?
Well, I was about to go to that there. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's if you've said everything that you want to say, I don't think I've got a lot more to add. I know I've kind of rambled on about things off topic and stuff tonight, but just trying to gather my thoughts basically. But yeah, I'm happy if you are to
I'm happy.
go ahead and rank tonight's
Yeah.
episode or this episode, which we've been doing using the Star Trek Next Generation, which has kind of been used in pretty much most of the things, but their rank pin rating system from captain to ensign. So yeah, where are you at on this then, Pete?
So I think I've been at pretty consistently lieutenant. And while I don't think this episode is really any better or any worse than the 3 that came before it that I gave lieutenant, I am going to give it a lieutenant commander, because I am warming more to what they are doing, and I am not holding it to I think a higher standard than I maybe have been holding things to. Right? I think that if you go back and watch Assignment Earth, you'll see that this is exactly in line with these episodes of Picard. But so it is very much Star Trek, right? For those who like to criticize things as not being Star Trek, this is very much Star Trek. It's very much at the bar set by the original series. So I don't think it's ascended, but it is there. It's a lieutenant commander. I guess also I should give it a lieutenant commander because Brent Spiner is in the episode. So there we go, Data.
There you go. Well, I mean, we're kind of in agreement on this one then, because I think the last couple I've given lieutenant commander after, I think the first one I gave a captain because I really was intrigued by that, and then I think I gave a commander, and then the last couple have been lieutenant commanders, and I'm going to stick with lieutenant commander for this one. So you and I are in complete agreement on this one. So,
look at that.
So look at that. But
yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and
that worked really well. Sorry. Yeah. Good handoff.
Go ahead and open a channel.
All right. You can get in touch with the show at LSWOTcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on all the social medias at LSWOTcast. Please do look us up, follow us, give us a like. If you're listening to this as a podcast, please do subscribe, like, and leave a brief review, as that all helps. If you're watching here on the YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and catch the rest of the videos that are here. I've been Pete Mealy, and I'm on Twitter at Too Many E's, TOOMANYEES.
Absolutely, and obviously you're here on Home Media Minefield, so check out more of the work on this channel. As I said, there are podcasts and live streams and all sorts of things here, as well as reviews of physical media, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K UHD, that sort of thing. That also, if you want to check out some of my other work as well, my other channel is British Isles. That's EYLES, as in my last name, and you can see some of my more creative work, etc., over there. Any feedback, very welcome. And in terms of what else we're doing, we do have another show running at the moment as well, which is looking at the Marvel series Moon Knight. We've already posted the first episode of that, and more episodes to follow. So please check us out on that as well. But yeah, that just leaves me to say thank you for listening to this. Thank you to Neil Myers for our wonderful theme music, and William McLaughlan for our logo. Links to their work can be found in the show notes below. So thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you. We will see you on the next Home Media Minefield Presents. Let's see what's out there.